As a group, Seventh-day Adventists are among the most health and fitness-oriented folks in the world. In the early days of the church, however, believers had no idea of how to maintain their health.
Please pass the pork chops, Brother Hanson, and the salt cellar and pepper. I like lots of seasoning.
Certainly, Brother Page. And I'd like some more of that good hot bread and butter next to you.
Sister Page, would you like some more coffee?
Thank you, Sister Hanson. Lots of sugar, please.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to a big wedge of your mince pie, too. You make the richest pies I've ever tasted. Why, when I press down on the crust, I can just see the lard squeeze out.
Nothing was known of the causes of disease, and not even doctors had any idea that diet affected health.
Feeling any better, Maudie?
Oh, no, Zach, it just keeps getting worse. Oh, I wish there was something we could do to keep from getting sick.
That'd be right nice. But we can't control sickness any more than we can control the weather. It's all ordered by God's hand, and we just have to accept His will. Now, Maudie, the doctor said you have to eat. I brought you some nice hot biscuits and pork gravy.
The leaders of the young Adventist church were as much prone to the diseases of the time as anybody else. Perhaps the only exception was Joseph Bates, who had discarded meat, tea, and coffee, and rich foods early on. The belief of many of the members that tobacco was bad was confirmed by a vision Ellen had in the fall of 1848.
I saw in vision that tobacco was a filthy weed, and that it must be laid aside. Unless it's given up, the one that uses it cannot be sealed with the seal of the living God. Those who have been in the habit of using tobacco will have a struggle to leave off, but they must not be discouraged.
Please pray for me, brethren, that I may gain the victory.
We'll all pray for you and with you, Brother Rhodes.
Samuel Rhodes was cured of his craving and never again used tobacco, although others continued to chew and smoke. The emphasis in these early years was on tobacco, tea, and coffee. But in 1854, Ellen White was given more light on health.
It was so clear, James. I saw that God will have a clean and holy people. He doesn't consider an untidy, unclean person to be a Christian. And the houses of the saints, too, should be kept tidy and neat, free from dirt and filth and all uncleanness.
I've remarked how careless some of the believers are in regard to cleanliness. What else did you see, Ellen?
Appetite must be denied. If we wish to keep well, we must take special care of the health God has given us. It's important to deny the unhealthy appetite. We must eat less fine food.
What should we eat, then?
Coarse, wholesome food, free from grease. Then we can ask God's blessing and derive strength from our food.
On June 6, 1863, in the midst of the Civil War, and less than 2 weeks after the General Conference was organized, Ellen was asked to lead out in prayer at family worship in the Aaron Hilliard home in Otsego, Michigan. James was experiencing a letdown after the long battle for organization, and the church members were concerned about his depression. As she prayed for her husband, Ellen put her hand on his shoulder.
We ask that thou wilt extend thy hand to encourage and strengthen him. Glory, glory, glory.
Don't be frightened, brothers and sisters. Sister White is in vision. She's in no danger. We'll just wait until she comes out of it.
Dark, so dark.
She's coming out of vision now. How long has it been, Brother Hilliard?
45 minutes.
Ellen, can you tell us what you saw?
I I don't think I can right now. It was about health, but so different, so strange.
Two weeks later, the Whites, with 9-year-old Willie, were in Allegan, Michigan, as guests of Dr. Horatio Lay.
Sister White, I'm most eager to hear what you saw in your vision on health. Please, tell us.
I don't see how I can, Dr. Lay. I'm not familiar with medical language, and much of the matter presented was so different from commonly accepted views that I fear I couldn't relate it so that it would be understood.
Well, please, tell us what you've been shown, and see if we can understand it.
Yes, Ellen, try it.
Well, I saw that pain and sickness, in most cases, are simply nature, trying to overcome the transgressions of nature's laws.
Amazing.
I saw that temperance means much more than just giving up liquor.
What does it mean, then?
It includes working and eating moderately. We shouldn't eat so much or so often, and I was shown that there are serious dangers of contracting disease through eating meat.
Meat?
I told you it was strange. And I was shown that we shouldn't ever eat swine's flesh.
Then those who've spoken against swine's flesh were correct.
Yes, the problem was they tried to make it a test of fellowship too soon. We had to organize first, so the Lord could make his will known to the church, rather than to one or two individuals. He leads his people only as far as they're ready to go.
Praise the Lord!
I was shown that reform in health matters is part of the third angel's message. We must have clear, healthy minds in order to understand the will of God, and strong bodies in order to do his bidding. Taking care of our health isn't just a good idea. It's a sacred religious duty.
Young Willie listened avidly as the conversation moved to Dr. Lay's parlor, where it continued for 2 hours. The vision included information on the healthful benefits of water, sunlight, and fresh air. James and Ellen were specifically told they had been wrong to exhaust themselves with extremely long hours of labor. James was told to stop dwelling on the uncooperativeness of some of the other church leaders, that such a state of mind endangered his health.
And James, I was shown that you and I have a special work to arouse others to do their duty, to come out against intemperance. I saw that we should wake up minds to the subject of health.
We'll start practicing these health principles immediately. We can have 2 meals a day, at 7 a.m. and 1 p.m.
And we'll cut out meat.
Ellen was a great meat eater and thought she had to have flesh food to prevent her frequent fainting spells. She especially hated bread, but she was determined to obey the instructions of the Lord.
For these things we thank thee. Amen.
Amen.
What have we here? Carrots and string beans, steamed without butter or bacon drippings, and bread.
There's no butter?
That's right, Henry. And no meat either.
But, Mother, you can't do without meat.
The Lord has shown me that meat is injurious to our health. I will obey. Please pass me the bread, Willie.
Here you are, Mother.
Thank you. Oh, this is terrible.
What did you say?
I said, stomach, you may wait until you can eat bread. I'll eat simple food, or I won't eat at all.
After a few missed meals, Ellen could eat bread, even whole wheat bread, which they called Graham bread. Her fainting spells disappeared. She rarely ate meat after that, and after the Brighton, Australia camp meeting of 1894, she never ate it again. For the next several months, Ellen was busy writing and publishing the instructions she had received. People who tried the health reform wrote enthusiastic reports to the Review, and after 1866, to the New Health Reformer magazine.
I enjoy as perfect health as probably can be enjoyed in this mortal state. I would not return to my old habits of eating for any consideration. Elder Isaac Sanborn.
I believe the reform came up just in time to save me from becoming a complete wreck. M.E. Cornell.
My cough is better. I have gained in flesh, have more warmth in my system, and feel better prepared to endure another cold winter. Elder John Byington.
Bless God for the health reform. It has come as a messenger of mercy, strengthening the body, cheering the mind, and refreshing the spirit. Elder J.H. Wagoner.
In 1865, the women of the Battle Creek Church produced recipes for meatless meals, to be included in the first number of How to Live, a series of 6 pamphlets on health. One of the recipes was for Graham Gems, a kind of whole wheat muffin which became very popular. Predictably, some people went to extremes in their reforms. In 1868, Ellen roundly denounced the practices of 2 men who had enforced prolonged fasting on their families. As a result, one young man died, and the father was barely saved.
Ellen, are you writing the testimonies for brothers, what are you calling them?
B and C.
It's a disgrace. If they'd treated their animals the way they treated their families, their community would have risen up and brought them to justice.
Brother B's wife was denied sufficient food and clothing when she was pregnant. It would have been better for her to have a little milk and sugar, salt, white bread, than nothing. If those weren't available, a little wine would have been better than starvation.
Are you sure?
Absolutely. Even a small amount of the least objectionable meat would have been all right under the circumstances. She should never have allowed her husband to become God, conscience, and will to her.
I'm glad you're writing to them. The health reform is unpopular in the world. When church members act like this, they cause the whole message to be ridiculed.
The settlers on the western prairies had a limited variety of food and almost no fruit. Ellen advised against pressing them further than they could go in health reform. She also would not bow to pressure to ban milk, salt, and sugar, although she said it was best to keep them to a minimum. When Willie found that 3 small meals worked better than 2 large ones for his family, Ellen did not reprove him. Her stock answer to those who enforced her writings inappropriately was, time and circumstances must always be taken into account. Many Seventh-day Adventists today are doctors, nurses, dietitians, and physical therapists, working in hospitals, sanitariums, and health food stores on every continent. But it wasn't always so. To understand the critical need for improved medical practices, we must go back to 1799 to Mount Vernon, Virginia, where the young nation's greatest hero lay dying.
The patient doesn't improve, gentlemen. The third bleeding accomplished no more than the other 2, even though we took another 32 ounces of poisoned blood from his veins.
The application of blisters hasn't helped either, nor have the doses of calomel.
Let's try some more emetic tartar.
Yes, and another inhalation of vinegar and water vapor.
Please.
He's trying to speak.
Yes, sir. What are you trying to say?
Please, let me die without further interruption.
Details of this treatment were published to assure the people that their beloved former president had received the best care possible. Over the next half-century, there was little improvement. There were no antibiotics. Doctors dosed their patients with poisons such as arsenic, strychnine, opium, and calomel, which were called drugs, and they frequently prescribed tobacco to strengthen weak lungs. Gradually, some physicians began to experiment with natural remedies. A Dr. Jackson and a Dr. Trawl operated water cure institutions. In the winter of 1862-1863, James and Ellen White had a first-hand experience with water treatments. Diphtheria was raging, and 2 of their sons came down with sore throats and fever.
One doctor recommends a poultice of Spanish flies and turpentine. Should we try that, James?
I haven't noticed that it's helped any other children. Wait a minute. I saw an article in one of the New York papers by Dr. J.C. Jackson. He said he regularly cures diphtheria with water treatments. I'll go find it.
Do you suppose that's enough water, James?
Yes. Dr. Jackson said to use just enough hot water to make a sitz bath, and a basin of warm water on the floor for the patient to put his feet in.
All right, Willie, you're first.
Yes, Mother.
Sit down carefully, son.
Now, we wrap the heavy blanket around him to keep the heat in, and a cold towel rolled into a band around his head. There.
I look like an Indian.
You sound more like a wheelbarrow load of gravel. Here, let me reach under the blanket and rub the hot water over your chest.
Step by step, James and Ellen followed Dr. Jackson's instructions. To their joy, both boys recovered completely, and Ellen successfully used the same treatment a few days later on elder Moses Hull's oldest child. In September 1864, James and Ellen visited Dr. Jackson's Institute, our home on the hillside, to observe his methods.
I'm very impressed with Dr. Jackson's methods, James. They're very close to what I was shown in Vision. A vegetarian diet, 2 meals a day, no drugs. But I just can't approve of the amusements provided.
For the object for which they're intended, and when confined to the institution, they don't seem so objectionable, but I fear the influence of card-playing and dancing upon young men and women when they leave the institution.
A year later, they returned to the Institute, this time as patients. James, who had overworked in spite of the instruction received in 1863, had suffered a severe stroke, and Ellen was exhausted from caring for him. They stayed for 3 months. En route home, Ellen had a vision in Rochester, New York, on Christmas Day, 1865. She presented the message of this vision at the General Conference session of May, 1866.
The health reform is part of the third angel's message and is just as closely connected with it as are the arm and hand with the human body. Our people should have an institution of their own, under their own control, for the benefit of the diseased and suffering among us. As unbelievers shall resort to an institution conducted by Sabbath-keeping physicians, they will be brought directly under the influence of the truth.
Brother Loughborough, come in.
Brother Kellogg, you heard the testimony that Sister White read to us. A few of us have decided to make an investment for the purpose presented, sink or swim. We thought we'd like to have your name at the head of the list, as you have more money than any of us.
Let me take that paper. J.P. Kellogg, $500. There it is. Sink or swim.
Others quickly added their names to the subscription list, and the committee sold shares for $25 each, with the promise of dividends. Before long, however, on Ellen White's counsel, the investors donated their shares to the Institute. The 9-acre residence of Judge Graves was purchased, and on September 5th, 1866, the Western Health Reform Institute was opened with 2 physicians, 2 helpers, and 1 patient. By January 1867, however, the Institute was running out of room for patients.
Listen to this, Libby. According to this article reprinted in the Review, Indians are gathering more war parties out west. They claim the government's broken its promises, that they're going to die anyway, and they'd rather die fighting than starve on the reservations.
Oh, that's disgraceful, Horace. Why can't the government provide proper food for the Indians who have surrendered?
Because people want to see the Indians exterminated, that's why, to make more room for settlers. Oh, here's something by Dr. Lay about the Health Institute. We do not dare to advertise the institution to any great extent, for fear we shall not have place for those that may wish to come.
My, it sounds as though the Health Institute is doing very well.
Too well. Dr. Lay says he needs $25,000 to put up another building. He says here, we can take care of at least 100 more patients than we now have.
I suppose we should contribute then. After all, Sister White said in Testimony 11 that we should support the Health Institute.
Yes, I'm sure she knows about it. They get the Review up there in Greenville.
James, this is one of the heaviest trials I've ever borne. In spite of my conversations with the directors of the Health Institute and my letters to them, they're determined to erect this new building.
I wish I were well enough to go to Battle Creek myself. They're pushing expansion too fast. You saw in your vision that the Institute should start small and grow gradually. They haven't listened.
And now they're using my testimony that asks people to support the building of the Institute to urge people to support this expansion. I should never have let Uriah Smith press me into publishing a plea for support of the Health Institute before I had time to write the entire vision. That will never happen again.
Even John Loughborough and John Andrews are supporting the expansion.
I saw that the health work is to be an arm of the message, not the whole message. Funds which should be spent on evangelism are going to the Institute.
Not only that, but people who can't really afford it are being pressured to give more.
Plans went forward over the next months. Materials were bought and the foundation was dug. On September 9th, 1867, Ellen and James, accompanied by John Loughborough, traveled by carriage to Battle Creek, where Ellen addressed the church on Sabbath.
And as I have seen the large calculations hastily urged, I have felt alarmed. Should the physicians fail, through sickness, death, or any other cause, the work would be hindered. Should means fail to come in when extensive buildings were in process of erection, capital would be sunk. Also, there might be a lack of patience to occupy present accommodations, consequently a lack of means to meet expenses.
I hadn't thought of that.
What she says makes sense.
I thought the expansion was going too fast.
With all the efforts in every department put forth, and with the blessing of God, the institution will prove a glorious success, while a single failure might prove a great injury. It should not be forgotten that out of many hygienic institutions started within the last 25 years, but few maintain even a visible existence at the present time. Move no faster, brethren, than the unmistakable providence of God opens the way.
Brother White, we want to ask you to serve on the board of directors of the Health Institute. You're the only one with business experience, and we need you to guide us.
I'll be glad to do all I can to help. The large building is given up for the present, and the material is being sold. Still, a debt of several $1,000s will be resting upon the Institute.
What's going to happen to the ones who caused this trouble?
They should be censured.
Those who have committed errors for want of experience feel all they should, and it is not Christian-like to murmur against them. Now, we have plans that will make it possible to continue the activities of the Institute within its resources. Fear not, the business is sound.
It was not yet smooth sailing for the Health Institute. In 1868, the Institute was found to be in debt $13,000, mostly because so many of the patients were needy church members who were charged only half rates. It was at this time that the dividend-paying stocks were abandoned and the Institute was run as a non-profit concern. By 1870, James was able to get a new board installed, this time consisting of experienced businessmen. The Institute rallied, and on July 21st, 1871, 800 guests from the church, institute, and city celebrated its success with a service of rededication and a gala picnic. John Harvey Kellogg, the 10th of 16 children, was born February 26, 1852, to John Preston Kellogg, a transplanted New Englander, and his second wife, Anne. The Kelloggs were abolitionists who operated a station on the Underground Railroad in Tyrone, Michigan. In the spring of 1852, the family was introduced to the Seventh-day Sabbath by a young neighbor, M.E. Cornell, who one day stopped by while John Preston Kellogg was raking hay.
Mr. Kellogg? May I talk to you for a minute?
Sure thing, Cornell. Climb over the fence and speak your piece.
Nice field of clover you have over here.
There you are. It was Mrs. Kellogg's idea. It not only makes good hay, it improves the soil. So, what's on your mind this morning?
I wanted to tell you about some meetings Angie and I just attended in Jackson. A fellow named Joseph Bates is lecturing there on the Advent.
A Millerite, is he?
Well, yes, but more than that. He teaches the biblical doctrine of a heavenly sanctuary, and he says Saturday's the Sabbath.
Saturday?
Well, look in your Bible, Mr. Kellogg. You'll find Elder Bates is correct. Look especially at the fourth commandment.
Well, I guess I can do that much. Look here, Anne. Young Cornell was right. Strange that I never took note of it before. The Sabbath really is Saturday.
Let me see. Well, it does seem so, doesn't it? But we're so used to going to church on Sunday, I just don't know.
You know, I haven't been completely satisfied with my religious experience for years. I'm going to study this question thoroughly.
Later that summer, the family attended another series of lectures by Elder Bates in Jackson. John Preston Kellogg, his wife Anne, and the two grown sons, Merritt and Smith, embraced the truths presented. In 1856, the family moved to Battle Creek. John Harvey was small for his age and sickly. He wasn't sure what he wanted to do in life, but an early experience when he and some other boys peeked through the window while a friend underwent surgery on the kitchen table made him certain of what he did not want to be.
Wow! Look at all the candles and all the oil lamps they've got burning. It's as bright as the sun in there.
And he's laid out so still. He looks dead, doesn't he, Johnny? I think he is dead.
He's not dead. They made him breathe that new gas ether, and it put him to sleep. I know that much.
I wonder why the doctor wears that old blood-stained apron. Why doesn't he get a clean one? Ooh, he's starting to cut him with a knife.
Ooh, look at the blood spurt.
Ugh.
Ah, I didn't know Eddie had that much blood in him. Did you, Johnny? Johnny, where are you? Where'd he go?
Reading again, Johnny. You're giving yourself a good education. What do you think you'd like to be when you grow up?
Anything except a doctor.
At the age of 11, John Harvey Kellogg began working a regular 10-hour shift at the broom factory his father had opened in Battle Creek. And at age 12, he went to work at the review office. Although he received very little formal education, he taught school for one winter when he was 16. He had to quit, though, because of lung trouble. Over the next few years, he completed his high school studies. During these years, John worked when he was well enough. He often served as a secretary for some of the denominational leaders. For months at a time, the teenager lived in the White home, helping Elder James White with writing and editorial work. Impressed by Ellen White's health message, he became a vegetarian. By 1872, when John was 20, Elder and Mrs. White had come to think of him almost as another son.
You know, John, Sister White has been shown that you're to fill a definite place in God's service.
Me? Did she say what I'm supposed to do, Elder White?
No. I guess God will show you your role when the time comes.
The thought is humbling. I must prepare myself so I can answer God's call when it comes. It's probably teaching. I'll take the teacher's training course.
Fine. You can go to Ypsilanti in the spring, to the Michigan State Normal School, if you think you'll be well enough.
Oh, yes, I'm sure I'll be fine. It's just one term, and then I can come home again for the summer.
It's wonderful to have you here for supper, Merritt, to help us celebrate John's homecoming from college.
It's good to be here, Mother.
John, have another helping. You need to make up for all the meals you lost at college.
Now, Mother, I did not starve. I planned carefully. And for an average of 6 cents a day, I ate an adequate diet of vegetables, nuts, fruits, and graham bread.
That's fine, dear. Now eat your potatoes.
Yes, Mother.
We were pleased at the report you sent us, son, especially when you passed the examination in methods of teaching algebra without even taking the class.
It sounds as though your teaching experience helped you.
Oh, yes, and that book I read by Margaret Fuller helped too. I was surprised at how much I remembered after several years. And I'll always be grateful to Professor Bell for teaching me grammar so thoroughly. It certainly helped me in my English classes. Well, little brother, you may make something of yourself yet. Thanks, Merritt. I don't think I'll ever do as much as you. Starting the work in California, then coming back here to help run the Health Reform Institute. But I intend to do my best as a teacher. I can't wait to get back to college this fall.
John's stay in Ypsilanti that autumn, however, was unexpectedly brief.
I was interested in what our professor said about Friedrich Froebel's methods of learning. Had you heard of them before, John?
Yes. Froebel believes young children should have light and air in the classroom and should have time to play instead of sitting cramped at desks for long hours every day. That's why he calls his school a kindergarten. A children's garden.
But can it really work? It seems so frivolous.
Well, I tried his methods on my younger brothers and sisters a few summers ago. I was amazed at how much they learned.
Oh, here's a letter on the desk for you, John.
Oh, I didn't expect one this soon. What? I'm called home for a family council. What could it be about?
I've been asked to meet with your family today, John. And Merritt thinks he needs more medical training than the 6-month course he took at Dr. Troll's Hygiotherapeutic College 5 years ago. He plans to repeat the course so he can be more useful at the Health Reform Institute. My boys, Willie and Edson, are going, too, and so is Jenny Tremblay.
I see, Elder White, but I don't understand what that has to do with me.
I want you to come to New Jersey and take the course with me, John. I believe you have just the qualities needed in a health reform doctor.
A doctor?
Yes!
Never, Merritt. The last thing on earth I want to be is a doctor. I won't go. Well, I'm glad there's no tobacco smoke in this car. Everybody comfortable? Jeannie?
Fine.
Willie? Edson? Yeah. Here, John, I'll move over and give you more room. It's a long ride to New Jersey.
John Harvey Kellogg still did not intend to become a doctor. He expected to use his training only for teaching health education. The course at Dr. Trall's must have aroused the young man's interest in medicine, however, because he was agreeable to Elder James White's next suggestion in 1873 when John was 21.
The climate of medicine is changing, John. If you're going to gain a hearing for our health reform principles, we must have physicians with a sound knowledge of anatomy, physiology, and chemistry.
I agree, sir.
That's why I want you to go to the University of Michigan Medical School in Ann Arbor this fall. The school has been in operation for 25 years now, and the faculty is excellent. You'll get a good training there. What do you say?
I'll go.
James White aided John's education with a loan of $1,000. John attended one term at the University of Michigan, then transferred to the Bellevue Hospital Medical School in New York City, where he could acquire clinical experience. Here, John Harvey Kellogg began a 40-year friendship with Stephen Smith, the doctor who introduced Joseph Lister's methods of antiseptic surgery at the hospital. It was here also, while living on a small budget with limited cooking facilities, that John first had a revolutionary idea.
Come in? Oh, hello, Peter.
Hello, John. Ready for our class with Dr. Janeway and Dr. Flint? Dr. Janeway said he had some interesting cases for us to diagnose today.
I wouldn't miss their class for the world. Only 6 best students are allowed in. And it's the only place we can get experience with the special examining equipment they have.
Yes, it's worth the $500 they're charging. Something smells good in here, like baked potato.
I baked one in the fireplace from my lunch.
Have you given up your experiment with that graham cracker and apple diet?
No, I can't afford any other diet. But I do eat a little oatmeal and baked potato now and then. Cooking is very inconvenient, though, especially when I'm in a hurry to get to my classes. It ought to be possible for folks to buy pre-cooked cereal in grocery stores, all ready to eat.
You have wild ideas, John Kellogg.
In 1874, John Kellogg became editor of the Health Reformer, which he renamed Good Health. He remained editor for the rest of his life. After graduating from medical school in 1875, he became a professor at Battle Creek Adventist College and a trustee for the Seventh-day Adventist Educational Society. He also joined the medical staff of the Health Institute and served as secretary of the board. In July of 1876, Elder James White called on the busy young man.
John, the board has asked me again to offer you the directorship of the Health Institute. We're all sorry that you turned down the offer we made last year.
I believe I made the right decision, Elder White. Sister White confirmed that when she told me it wasn't the right time for me to take charge.
That was last year. How about now?
I'm no more ready now than before. I'm only 24, and so short the staff think of me as a mere boy. Besides, I want to continue with my research and writing.
The Institute's rapidly going downhill. We need you to reorganize it, to bring discipline and order to the enterprise.
I would want complete control. A free hand to restructure the Institute on a rational and scientific basis.
You'll have it.
Well, all right. For 1 year only. Then we'll see.
John's 1 year at the sanitarium would become 67. He practiced what today we call preventive medicine. Nearly 100 years before the U.S. Air Force developed aerobics, John Harvey Kellogg prescribed such exercise for his patients, emphasizing walking, cycling, and swimming. In July of 1876, Dr. John Kellogg arranged a health and temperance exhibit for the Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia, where he was no doubt one of the eager crowd who witnessed Alexander Graham Bell's demonstration of his new invention, the telephone. The exposition was exciting, but for young Dr. Kellogg, the fireworks began in October, when he took up his new duties at the Health Institute.
I fear this board has made a great mistake. The minute we installed Dr. Kellogg as director of the Health Institute, 6 of the patients left, and so did Dr. Russell.
Terrible!
It's a bad situation.
Worse than before!
It seems, Brother Canright, that Dr. Russell's nose is out of joint with a younger man taking his place as chief physician.
But no one has faith in Dr. Kellogg. He's too young. 2 more patients left just this morning. That leaves us with only 12. What will happen to the Health Institute?
Brother Haskell, everyone, let's not act hastily. I believe the Institute's prospects for success have never been so bright. Let's just wait a while and see what happens. I'm pleased to report to the board that in the 7 months since Dr. Kellogg has been director, the financial condition of the Health Institute has improved tremendously. The debt has been wiped out, and the institution has $3,000 in the bank. Far from losing patients, as some feared, this last winter the Institute treated double the number we've normally seen. In fact, it begins to appear that we need to expand the Institute. I propose we launch a drive to raise $25,000 for a new building. John, the board members are happy you've agreed to stay as director for a while.
Well, at least until we've paid for the new building. With you leading the fund drive, that shouldn't take too long, Elder White.
We hope not. Right now, we'd like you to explain why you've changed the name of the Health Reform Institute to the Medical and Surgical Sanitarium, especially as none of us has ever heard of the word sanitarium.
I chose it to show that we use Dr. Lister's sanitary surgical methods to prevent the growth and spread of germs, which Robert Koch and Louis Pasteur have recently proven to exist.
Oh, I see.
But sanitarium isn't even in the dictionary.
It soon will be, Brother Haskell. The name is a variation on sanatorium, of course. The difference is that a sanatorium is a place where people come to get well. In our sanitarium, people will have a place where they can learn to stay well.
We hope the sanitarium finances will learn to stay well, too.
Good point, Brother Canright. Dr. Kellogg, I understand that you sometimes have difficulty collecting from patients who are perfectly able to settle their bills.
Well, there was a patient like that recently, Brother Haskell. He made it clear he intended to leave without paying, but he had a gold watch which he kept on his person at all times. I called the sheriff to my office and asked him to attach the watch until the bill should be paid.
Now, Doctor, how do you expect me to get that watch? I can't pick a man's pocket.
Never mind, Sheriff. I have a... Oh, here he comes. Hide behind the door, please. Good morning, Mr. Locke. Are you ready for a treatment?
But I'm leaving. And make no mistake, I'm not paying.
You haven't left yet. As long as you're here, we want to do everything possible for you. Shall we go into the treatment room?
Sure. Why not? I like the treatment baths. How very kind of you, mine host.
All right, Sheriff. You can see his clothes on the chair in there in the treatment room with the watch on top.
Good thinking, Doctor.
What the... Sheriff! Dr. Kellogg!
Yes, Mr. Locke? Is there something I can do for you?
For the time being, at least, Mr. Locke, I'm afraid your watch will have to remain in the possession of the hospital until your bill is paid.
Okay, Doc, you got me. I'll wire home for some money to pay my bill.
He didn't even seem angry when he left. And that, brethren, is how we kept the enterprise solvent.
Unfortunately, Elder James White suffered a stroke before the new building was completed, and the money had to be borrowed. Dr. Kellogg's 1 year at the sanitarium became 67 years, and most of the time the institution was in debt. By 1877, the year England's Queen Victoria was proclaimed Empress of India, Dr. Kellogg realized that the sanitarium had a problem which demanded immediate attention.
Good evening, ma'am. Are you enjoying your dinner?
What there is of it.
You find the food insufficient? What about you, sir?
Meager and monotonous, Doctor. Meager and monotonous.
I must see that future meals are more acceptable. If everyone has found a seat, we'll begin our question and answer session for this evening. I plan to make these sessions a regular feature in the sanitarium. Who has the first health question for this evening? Yes, sir.
What was the new food we had for breakfast this morning, Doctor? It was good.
Well, that was something I developed in the sanitarium kitchens. I call it granola. Do all of you like it?
Oh, yes, it was very good.
It's the best stuff I've had in a long time.
I wish I could take some home with me.
Dr. Kellogg had intended granola for sanitarium patients only, but the demand soon led to a small business. Battle Creek had taken the first step towards becoming the breakfast food capital of the world. Changes were also about to take place in Dr. Kellogg's personal life. On the evening of Washington's birthday in 1879, sanitarium guests who were gathered in the big parlor got the surprise of their lives.
It's Dr. Kellogg in his best suit.
Look, here comes Miss Ella Eden, his literary assistant, and she's all dressed up, too. Looks like there's going to be a wedding.
But that can't be. Only a month ago, I heard her say she was planning to marry a Seventh-day Adventist young man in another year and leave Battle Creek.
Well, maybe that's why Dr. Kellogg's marrying her. He doesn't want to lose such a good assistant.
Oh, Pastor McCoy is about to start the ceremony.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony.
Ella Eaton Kellogg was brilliant, a talented author, sanitarium dietitian, a member of the editorial board of Good Health, and an active member of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, which had been promoting prohibition since 1874. Ella conducted dietetic research in an experimental kitchen she established at the sanitarium. After a 6-week honeymoon in Boston, where they prepared 2 books for publication, the Kelloggs returned to their duties. In May 1879, Dr. Kellogg was promoting health reform at the camp meeting in Emporia, Kansas.
Elder White, it's good to see you. How was your trip from Texas?
Exhausting, John. Sister White and I were happy to leave the wagon train. How's your work in Battle Creek?
It's hard getting any cooperation on health reform, especially from ministers. I face so many difficulties and have so much to do, I'll probably work myself to death. And no one will thank me for it.
Do what Sister White has advised you. Delegate authority. Don't try to control everything yourself.
But Elder White, the only reason I'm involved in so many activities is there's no one else to do them. It's not that I enjoy sitting in an office and running things.
What about your brother, Will Keith? Could you persuade him to return to Battle Creek and help you? He has good business training and business sense.
Oh, he's too busy running around Texas selling brooms. Besides, he's barely 19. Maybe another year or so.
1879 was the year that another hard worker, Thomas Edison, invented the first practical electric light bulb. The next year, Will Keith did return to Battle Creek. Newly married Will was glad to take a job as John's personal accountant and business manager, and the brothers worked closely for more than 30 years. In 1881, John spoke to Ellen White about some new religious concepts he was toying with.
The acorn falls to the ground and a tree grows. Therefore, there must be a tree maker in the tree. That tree maker is God. God is a part of nature. This great new light is exciting, Sister White. God in us will conquer illness.
These theories are wrong. I have met them before.
Wrong?
How?
The effect of such teachings would be to make people forget that God is the supreme being, the Creator. Nature is not God, and never was God. Never teach such theories in our institutions. Don't present them to the people.
This theory of God as an essence in all things is called pantheism. John did not give up the belief, and it was later to cause great turmoil in the church. James White died in 1881. That same year, John Preston Kellogg also lay on his deathbed, making a desperate plea to Ellen White.
Please, help my son. I feel that John is in great danger.
He does make things hard on himself through his pride and his desire to control.
But, Sister White, you'll not get discouraged, will you? Even though he seems headstrong.
I love John as a son. You have my word. I'll help him all I can.
You're the only one who can help him. Don't let him go, even though his case appears discouraging.
Ellen White faithfully advised John to be more humble and willing to take advice from others, to take better care of his own health, to delegate authority, and to share the resources of the sanitarium in helping new institutions get started, rather than using this money to continually enlarge the Battle Creek facility. Always, her advice was given with a love of a mother's heart, and Dr. Kellogg considered her his refuge and support. Dr. John Kellogg found it difficult to accept disagreement or criticism. He surrounded himself with yes-men who flattered him. At the same time, he used his sharp tongue on those he saw as opponents. So when Ellen White reproved this man she loved like a son, there were some who rejoiced.
Listen to this testimony, Grady. Sister White's really giving it to Dr. Kellogg.
Read it to me, Betsy. I can't wait to hear him get his comeuppance.
Well, she says the sanitarium has been perverted from its original design until it resembles a grand hotel rather than an institution for the treatment of the sick.
Didn't I say so? Dr. Kellogg brings in all his rich and famous folks just to make friends for himself.
He claims those people help build the reputation of the sanitarium so other people will want to come here and learn good health habits.
Well, it's obvious he's wrong. Does Sister White say anything about all this building going on? We haven't even paid off the addition that opened in 1878, and here he's putting up another addition for $50,000.
Oh, yes, right here. She says the financial embarrassment has caused Dr. Kellogg great care and labor and has nearly cost his life.
And him supposed to be teaching other people how to take care of their health. Read me more.
It is dangerous for any man who has talents, for Satan is constantly trying to fill him with pride and ambition. This will be your danger, Dr. Kellogg.
More than a danger. It's a fact.
Your neglect to attend the public worship of God is a serious error.
Be sure your sins will find you out. You can't argue with the messenger of God.
She says further, Dr. Kellogg has economy, but he should not let the habit degenerate into avarice and sharp practice. While he is liberal with his money, he is in danger of scheming. Petty sharpness is unworthy of a Christian.
Oh, she's got him out to the light.
No, wait, there's more. Some have indulged feelings toward Dr. Kellogg that are not justifiable. This is offensive to God. Dr. Kellogg does not claim perfection. The unwarrantable jealousy and prejudice against him are contrary to the spirit of Christ.
Well, wouldn't that frost ya? Now she's stopped preaching and gone to meddling.
Exactly.
During 30 years of correspondence with Ellen White, Dr. Kellogg kept promising to do better. But he neglected his health until he was weak from poor nourishment and lack of sleep. Then his faults became far too evident. Still, the sanitarium grew. In 1883, Dr. Kate Lindsay founded the School of Nursing.
A school of nursing is just what we need, Dr. Lindsay. We can train young women to take their place in mission fields all over the world.
Exactly. Dr. Anna Stewart and I have planned a 6-month course.
That sounds about right.
We also discussed tuition, and we think $150 is about right, including room and board, of course. We hope the women can earn their way by working at the sanitarium.
Yes, the cheap labor will help the sanitarium stay solvent, and the students will get practical experience at the same time. Yeah, excellent.
In 1888, John and Ella Kellogg started the School of Domestic Economy. The same year, John was converted at the General Conference session. Too soon, though, his exhausting work schedule and tendency to criticize once more marred his religious experience. In the 1890s, his relationship with church leaders grew worse. It did not help that the doctor frankly considered physicians superior to ministers.
Come on, Will. We can't discuss the day's schedule if you don't keep up with me. Run faster.
Maybe you could ride your bicycle a little slower. Don't understand this bicycle craze anyway.
That's good exercise. Even stage stars and society people ride bicycles to keep trim. You should get one.
$100 for bicycles, too much for me. Especially on the salary you pay me. Please, slow down.
Oh, you're as weak as those mamby-pamby ministers who won't follow the health principles I've been trying to get through their thick heads for years. Call themselves righteous.
Don't compare me to them. I never even go to church. I have noticed that a lot of members do seem ignorant about health reform.
It's the minister's fault, I tell you. They discourage the people by their example. They're too uneducated even to understand what I teach. And what Sister White teaches too, of course.
I'm glad you agree with Sister White.
Mostly I do. But I can't understand why she wants local conferences to direct physicians. That idea is totally unacceptable.
She's often said that medical work should be part of the church's mission, not its whole mission. Aren't you willing to work with the ministers at all? After all, you frequently preach.
Self-respecting medical men are willing to work on an equal footing with preachers, even though the preachers may be of inferior education and ability. But it is not human nature that doctors could be willing to be slaves to such men.
John, do you believe the Lord is leading Sister White?
Of course. I've tested her. Sometimes I've seen her wrong and said to myself, if Sister White knows about this, the circumstances would lead her to remain quiet or even favor what's happening. But if the Lord leads her to see it is evil and to reprove it, then I'll know she's being specially led.
And?
In not a single instance did she fail the test.
But isn't there danger in using your own judgment that way? What if one time you were overcritical?
Now you're sounding like one of those ministers. Don't you try undercutting me like they do. Oh, come along, we have to hurry and get to the sanitarium in time for work.
In spite of this attitude, John participated in church leadership and even served several times on the General Conference Executive Committee. In the meantime, he had a plan to help certain unfortunate people, and he wanted to talk to his mentor, Ellen White, about it.
And if people would just give up tea and coffee and donate the money they save, we'd have the means to build a home for orphans and the elderly. I'd like to call it the James White Memorial Home. What do you think, Sister White?
It's an excellent idea, Brother Kellogg. I remember on one of our last walks together, Brother White and I passed the home of a colored washerwoman who was very poor. My husband was deeply concerned for her.
Brother White always cared for those in need.
Yes. He said to me then, "Wife, let's not forget the poor souls who have so hard a struggle to live. If I had the means at my command, I'd build suitable houses to rent to these poor people. We'll see what can be done to make their lot more comfortable."
But he died before he could do anything.
Yes. Well, I hope the General Conference approves your plan. There's a great need. I know you and Sister Kellogg have your home full of orphan children already. How many are there now?
Nearly 40. We've completely outgrown our quarters at the sanitarium. We're building a house for our large family, but there are many others still homeless. They desperately need love as well as care. I don't want this orphanage to feel like an institution.
Well, how do you plan to prevent that?
We can organize the children into families of about a dozen, with a mother to supervise each family.
At the 1891 General Conference session, the church approved John's plan. Thanks to the generosity of Mrs. Carolyn Haskell, a non-Adventist guest at the sanitarium, the Haskell Home for Orphans opened in 1894. Later in the year, the church built the James White Memorial Home for the Aged. Also in 1894, John and Ella Kellogg moved into their new house, The Residence, where they reared 42 orphans, who included several Hispanic and African American children. Neither in his home nor in any institution he was connected with would John Kellogg tolerate racial discrimination.
The next order of business for the board is a petition from a group of sanitarium employees asking that a separate dining room be established for persons of color.
Never! Some of my own children are persons of color. I'll not tolerate a ruling which will prevent my children from eating at my side in the sanitarium dining room.
This is a board decision, Dr. Kellogg. If the board approves the petition...
I will immediately resign as medical director.
I move the board deny the petition.
All in favor?
Aye!
Petition denied. There will be no segregation at the Battle Creek Sanitarium.
Even before the orphanage and old age home opened, John was busy with other enterprises. In 1892, he had gone to Chicago to talk with a young woman whose very name had come to mean social work, Jane Addams, founder and director of Hull House.
I'm impressed with what you're doing here, Miss Addams. Day nurseries, gymnasiums, language classes, it's wonderful.
Thank you, Dr. Kellogg. There's much to do. Even those who have jobs make so little money they're dirt poor. And the children. Before I started the nursery, some of them had to go all day without eating until their parents got home from work very late at night.
There's one more project I think should be added to your neighborhood center. The medical mission I told you about. The mission could provide health care, and the ethnic mixture of the area would make it a perfect place for our foreign missionaries to train.
Oh, well, we could certainly use medical help, but I just can't see my way clear to add a denominational project. I'm sorry, Doctor.
The Chicago Mission Project was not dead, however. Early in 1893, the year a new product called peanut butter was added to the sanitarium menu, two brothers, Francis and Henry Vessels from South Africa, visited John's office. Their visit would prove a great blessing.